So, thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from Chicopee, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. He offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Mass. So you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
That's right. I love developing them.
And today he'll be educating us on his Chicopee tours. So why did you start doing Chicopee tours?
I started doing Chicopee tours because I was doing so many Holyoke and South Hadley tours now for 9 years. This is the year 2023. And I did one called the Sons of Zion Cemetery. I did it as a part of the Holyoke program because it was part of a Holyoke Jewish synagogue. And so I said to myself, well, maybe I can do the others and start out the same way. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to talk about what topics I generally do in the beginning, and also how they've been developing and what the future is going to be for Chicopee. What I really want to do is make sure that I develop my knowledge, and the best way I found out doing that is to go to cemeteries and learn about the layout of cemetery, why it started, who's there, and the first burials. It gets you into the culture of the place. Every town or city in Massachusetts is different from another. Can you learn about it? Yeah, in cemetery you start off learning about the people from the past. I mean, sure, there's other ways, but this is the way I found best because I know cemeteries so well. And then I move into things like churches and so forth, and that really helps you along the way.
And so what topics did you start with in Chicopee?
Okay, so what I started with is 2 years ago I did one cemetery. Then last year I did a few more to develop, and again it gets you more into the city. But I also did the Chicopee Center Canal, and that's another good start because I found out by doing Holyoke canals and cemeteries and South Hadley canals and cemetery, I got to learn about the geography and the history and get more names into my head and learn about the layout of the city or town. And it's helped greatly. And another one is the churches. So the 3 C's really helped me out in the beginning: cemeteries, churches, and canals. And of course, the reason why is churches are usually the nucleus of a neighborhood. Either they form the neighborhood or they come in soon thereafter because they're necessary. And you gotta lay your biases in the back and take on what life was like 150 years ago or 100 years ago to understand the people and to understand the geography and to understand why they did certain things and who was doing them. And if you don't do that, you'll never understand the past, and I could never explain the past. And so, what other topics I do depends upon developing that core of knowledge, and people appreciate that. They love churches and cemeteries and canals. So I got a lot of response in the beginning. Of course, the canals are going to be the most popular by far, and so I try to get people to develop from that. It's hard to get canal people to go to cemetery tour, but it's easier to get church people to cemetery tours and vice versa. So from there, what do I expand to? I expand into many other topics, and I'm going to discuss a few of them as we come through these questions. But those include streets and reservoirs, so forth.
And so, quickly before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour, and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you're interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, and they are perfect for fun and educational outdoor activities for the whole family, or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. And they are also good just for getting outdoors for the day. So, getting back to our interview, have there been any surprises so far?
Sure, I was surprised this year 2023, that the Chicopee Falls Canal, which is not there anymore, was actually developed as quickly as it was and as early as it was. And it turned out that it started the year after the Lowell Canal was started to be dug. And I was wondering actually this year who was done first and who had the first functional mill. I was trying to think maybe Chicopee had it. Most people, if you talk to people around Massachusetts, they would say Lowell was first, just as a reflex action. And so I looked into it. It turns out that Lowell did finish its power canal first, and they had the first functional mill going, but only by a few months before Chicopee Falls Canal was going. The same group made both. Lowell's Canal is much more complex than Chicopee Fall Canal, and but you thought that maybe that slowed it down, but it developed very quickly. And so at least I was happy to check into that. So there's always surprises. And of course, there's always surprises when you go into a cemetery because you learn, oh, maybe the cemetery you never knew about. And there was in Chicopee, but it's gone now. Maybe there was a cemetery that is still there and people forgot it. And there is. So if you go to my presentation this year on Chicopee cemeteries, you'll learn about these things. So I'm surprised, and other people will be surprised.
And so, what will the future hold for your tours and presentations in Chicopee?
Okay, so I told you I always start with the core, which is canals, churches, and cemeteries. And I always develop my knowledge around those. I like those the best. I do a lot of good research on those topics. I know how to explain them very well. So they're great for me to start with those. Now, how do I develop? What do I develop? What topics and presentation? Well, I start going into parks. And parks are great too because remember, those also are the core of neighborhoods. And people love to learn about parks. Some people think parks are simple, but they're not. By the end, they're very complex. Why are there? What used to be there? What is there now? Who started it and what group or person? What years did they start? And then I go into reservoir tours. If a community has a reservoir, which it usually does, where was the pump house? Where's the gatehouse? Where's the spillways? Where's the streams that feed into it? What years did it start? And is it still functional? Then I also do street tours. And street tours are fun because now you're putting everything together. Churches, cemeteries, canals, how do they all integrate? Especially you do a lot of study about homes, who lived in the home, what kind of home is it? Is it Victorian, Queen Anne? And did the mayor live there or did a worker live there? These kind of things I love to develop for people and give a nice little tour. Now, I do other topics too. I do one topic that I haven't done in Chicopee, but I've done in South Hadley and Holyoke, is do a presentation at the library where I only talk about one house and specifically instead of a whole bunch generally. And who lived there, what did they do for the community, what type of houses, how has it changed. And I hope to do that in Chicopee, but it takes a lot of work though, so I slowly have to develop these topics. And someday I'll get to all these topics for Chicopee. And there are people that do some of these around Chicopee and present to the library. So there are other people. And I stay away from those tours just because they've got their ground struck out. And I don't want to go on to what they're doing. Okay, so thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope to see you on a presentation on tour.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours. And we want to thank our listeners again for tuning in. You can also tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. Again, that's hoyokecanaltour.org. And again, you can email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And be sure to keep an eye out for his upcoming 2024 season tours and more as they become available. Thank you for tuning in.